Okay, so for those of you who haven't heard my spiel about who I am, my name is Mike Sigal. I run a business called Upside Partners. I'm previously a seed stage investor, having done 65 seed stage deals in the last 3 years. And we're going to talk about going from idea to seed or first institutional money with some amazing investors who have track records better than mine. I'd like you to start by going ahead and introducing yourselves, please, and make sure to speak in the mic.
Ladies first.
Sure. We are the earliest here anyways, so that's good. I'm Reshma Sohoni, co-founder and partner at Seedcamp. We are a very European-oriented fund, so we invest Europe-wide from pre-seed, seed, everything pre-Series A, kind of Israel, West, Nordic, South, everything in between. We were fortunate enough to be the first investors in TransferWise, in Revolut and Moniz and Curve and quite a lot of fintech, basically, Pleo and several others as well. So we've been very active in fintech, but we actually do a lot more in the enterprise space and general consumer space. We do roughly about 40 investments a year. So yeah, we're very, very busy, which means we have to be very good at spotting kind of that talent and the kinds of products that hopefully will become the names I mentioned.
So it's for those entrepreneurs here, there's still fundraising. It's very simple. You first go to Reshma, then you go to me, and then you go to Christian. Yeah, Christian might not see it this way, but anyway. So that's all you need. That's all you need. So I'm Stefan. I'm partner at Speedinvest. We are an early stage fund. We believe we're only the few truly pan-European seed funds, which includes sometimes pre-launch, really early, and sometimes late seed. I run the Fintech practice. We have we've raised about 400 million over the last 10 years. We have offices in Vienna, Berlin, London, San Francisco, and very soon Paris. In Fintech, yeah, I'm first investor in the board of N26, also of the bank. I'm in the board of Wirecard. I only do Fintech. And at Speedinvest, we've built a really great Fintech portfolio, including companies like WeFox, like Billy, and many other, Curve, of course. And yeah, looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, most of things have been said already. So I'm Christian. I'm partner with Earlybird. We are the largest German-based venture fund, not investing just in Germany, but across Europe, into basically East and Western Europe, and also within tech and health tech. We invest typically in the early stage, but also have quite a seed portfolio. So we don't care in the end which round we enter. We in some cases even invest in B rounds first time. I'm also running the fintech practice within Earlybird. We, additionally to fintech, we have another vertical focusing on logistic, mobility, and sustainability, and a third one focusing on enterprise productivity. And some companies you may know, enterprise productivity, UiPath, you may know, fastest growing software company ever globally. We are also early investors in N26. We have Peak Games, we have Smarva, so quite some companies you may know. And yeah, we also like to invest at an early stage, and then pretty early on partner with our US peers, basically help the companies launching in the US market. So that's something we have been doing quite some time and very successfully, basically with the idea and really becoming a dominant player and not just only staying on a European level.
Okay, great.
We are in France, so I should say we love the French market, and we've done a few
Little
investments
French
here.
Okay.
And you know, so we have to talk about, you know, Luco. We invested recently together with Excel, and we have Damien here as well. And so yeah, and Fair Money Predictus. So we love the French fintech market. Yeah.
Okay, so so we can get to know you. I'd like to do just a quick poll by show of hands. So if you're an entrepreneur, put your hand up and leave it up until I tell you to put it down. Okay. If you've already raised, no, leave it up until I tell you to put it down. If you've already raised some money, put your hand down. Okay, great. Who's a financial VC? Okay. Who's a CVC? One or two? All right, great. And who's everyone else? Awesome. All right. So I'd like to start with a question. And by the way, I want you to just start asking questions right from the beginning if you've got them. We've got a ton to sort of fill the gaps, but please ask away because we've all heard each other talk in the past. I want to start with a question that you posed, Christian. Why should these people not consider raising seed money?
Well, that's a good question. If you have friends, family, or have your own money because you exited your company early on, then raise no money for at least for a certain period of time. So build your product, assemble the team, and then raise money. So the longer you can wait, I think the better you're off. Not in all respects. Obviously, if you're not that experienced, it makes sense to get seed money on board because you have the experience, basically, of the guys who have been doing this before. So that's, I think, very important because you not just get the money, you get also more than that. So that's why I think it makes sense. But if you're already experienced entrepreneur, I can only recommend try to get along as you can get without raising money.
Great. And Reshma?
I think that's the only reason I can think of.
Not to raise seed? Because you can find it elsewhere?
Because you can find it elsewhere. Yeah, exactly. No, I think. I guess one good thing about not raising lots of money is it forces you to really think through your business model and helps you, it pushes you to think about your unit economics very early on. So I guess added to that, that's the only potential other benefit. I think in this day and age where competition is heavy and it is extremely hard to scale. It's easy to start up these days, extremely difficult to scale. You need some very good partners early on in your early on in the journey. And working through that together. So yeah, not much more to add on that.
Yeah, as a seed investor, of course, I have to very friendly disagree a little bit, Christian. I think even if you're a serial entrepreneur and you have much better probability of getting it done, I would say without overplaying our role, but it's just a really good hedge, right? To have someone in the board that can challenge you, that can bring another perspective, that can bring, let's say, a complementary network. I mean, if you think about internationalization, there is no one of us who really covers all these markets with their network. So I would see it as a hedge, and I think it's worth, diluting a little bit to get us in. I think we're worth helping there.
Stefan is always in selling mode, so don't fall into the trap.
So it brings up an interesting question in my mind, and one that I had to once I moved from being a 6-time entrepreneur to a VC. Have any of you been entrepreneurs? Yeah.
Of our own companies, yes.
Okay.
All three.
I mean, building a VC is a pretty entrepreneurial thing to do.
For sure. I had to go through fundraising as well.
I know exactly what you're all going through.
But so as I made that switch, I had to really think about what is my job as an early stage VC. And I'm wondering how you think about what you get up and do every day and what role you're supposed to play relative to entrepreneurs that you just meet and then entrepreneurs you decide to invest in. Yeah.
Well, Stefan mentioned already, it's the network. Obviously, everybody's talking about network, and you can't get enough of that. That's important. But I think there are other roles in terms of strategic thinking and thinking this through. And the name of the panel is basically from zero to seed. I think it would be a little bit short-sighted, and maybe we can help you, opening up and have the wider perspective and the long-term vision, which is important because you're not only raising once to seed, you're raising basically constantly. So every year you will be out raising. So and for this you need this long-term vision and really something where you're after and what you want to build. So that's very important, and we can obviously help you basically formulate this and get this across. That's one thing. And the other thing is recruiting. Recruiting is a big part, and you're always recruiting, basically always. And we have a lot of experience with this, with recruiting from our own network, with recruiters, whom to trust, whom to work with. I think that's a very important thing we can help you with, and because that basically distinguishes you from other companies who are not as good as this and may not grow as fast as you could if you do this right.
I mean, I think, we have a few different stages here, slightly or bigger. We have geography difference, and a bit of focus difference, right? So that's good, I think, because every different VC has different job. And so ours, for example, is really everything we do at Seedcamp is network driven in terms of the flywheel that we have of 600 founders that we've backed, thousands of their employees. We have over 100 of our own LPs, and it's this constant kind of flywheel that we feed into. So our entire job is a couple things. One is, as founders, as our customers, it's for the founders that we're looking at to invest in, it's just to be extremely fast, extremely clear. And make decisions fast for you guys, right? Whether we're going to come in or not. I think we owe that to our customers. And then on the other side of our customers, who then are part of Seedcamp, it's just being driven to just help in very smart ways. And so we don't try to be end all and be all to our founders, but just to be really, really, really smart and get the network of the founder community and the investor community and kind of an expert community to help out our companies. So we're just, it's a lot of first principles and being extremely disciplined in what we do and being very clear what we don't do. I mean, there's a lot we don't do.
So all that has been said is true. I would highlight two aspects that a lot of early stage, especially first-time founders, underestimate, which is just the gruel of fundraising as such. And even if you're a great founder, even if it's a fantastic idea you have, fundraising takes so much of your time, and I think that folks like here can really help in minimizing that pain. And of course, that requires that the VC partner actually hustles. Yeah, I think that's an aspect, and there's a lot of differences between VCs, right? I mean, my view anyways, I think we have to work really hard for the founders. We have to roll up the sleeves and actually hustle and really help them raise their round in the best possible way and reduce their pain. And so the recommendation is actually, VC brand is one thing, but you actually have to look at, who is gonna be in your board, right? And there's big differences there. So that aspect is not to be underestimated. Yeah.
Yeah, let me maybe add something to this. I've been in the jury yesterday and saw 60 companies pitching, and actually, and we had to basically give a prize for the best pitches, and we had to rank between 0 and 10, and there was no 10 and there was no 9 and there was hardly any 8s across the jury.
Why?
So, yeah, because
what was missing?
Well, it's a long story. What was missing? What I wanted to allude to is here. It's so important. Use every situation basically to train pitches and also challenge your VCs in terms of helping you making a great pitch, because this matters so much, because we will be doing always exactly this to your customers, to your VCs. The next round, you always be doing this here, everywhere. So it's so important, and the quality wasn't. I would say it was bad, but it was not superior. And this across the board, 60 companies pitching. So that was something I observed, and can only encourage you basically to get better in terms of, it's two things. It's the presentation per se, so in terms of how you present yourselves, and also the structure of your pitch. This is also something, and the content obviously of your pitch. So that matters really so much. So that's why I can only encourage you to train and use the help of the VCs basically to get better, because we've seen it all. We've seen so many times. We can give you very good advice of how to structure, how to put the content in front, and how to make this 5-6 minute pitches or half an hour pitches, whatever it is about. But it's so important. And the quality, as said, there was no 10s and no 9s and hardly any 8s in this ranking. So that's why I think it's very important.
The elements that were missing yesterday, like the key elements who would have made these presentations a bit more superior?
Well, yes, it's very simple. In some pitches, you even after the first minute, you didn't know what they're talking about. So you don't know what it's about. What are you really changing? What are you really what's your key differentiation from all the others out there? So it's many points. So it's probably would be too long for the session. But this is one very simple thing in terms of really coming to the spot very early in the first 30 minutes, basically that everybody knows exactly what you're doing and how you're differentiating from many others out there, which you all probably know.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I wasn't there yesterday, but I mean, I think what we see founders do is, like all of us, we like to be around people who are nice to us, and I think founders do that a little too much in those early days. Actually, get around some critics, like take some real critics who are smart and not just people who don't like you, but real critics, and understand from them what's missing, what can you add more of, and I think address the kind of elephant in the room. So one of my partners wrote a blog post about that, is the elephant in the room. Every company has it. You might have one, you might have four. You must address them, because if you meet the smart money and the smart talent and the smart customer out there, which is probably what you want all three of, is they're going to spot that elephant in the room right away. There's nothing, you can't hide behind it. So, and I just think founders don't do that at all across all these trainings, and they're taught a lot of the superficial, but the core, you've got to address the core.
And of course, there's those founders that have an incredible talent to be good on stage, but there's those that don't, right? And so, so for those in particular, it doesn't mean they're not good. I mean, they have maybe a fantastic product, but there's quite a lot of tech founders who just in the early stage underestimate that you actually have to talk about it, right? It's not just a great product, but you have to talk about it. So we still find amazing entrepreneurs. They build something pretty amazing, but they underestimate that they actually have to spend significant amount of their time going out to these conferences, having these conversations, and really looking for the critical audience, not just the one that anyway loves you, and learn it. Yeah. So we see a lot of, especially on the B2B side, people like that. So
I know I can tell you, having helped, made 65 investments in pre-seed companies, and about 3/4 of those have gone on to raise additional rounds. The two things that I really have to work on with my companies, the first one is clarity of their message, right? They think they know who they're providing value to and what problem they're solving, but often they suck at communicating it. They suck. They get mired in their technology and all the rest, and that turns out to be a detail until you capture imagination with, here's the problem I'm solving. The second one is underestimating how important metrics are at any given stage, right? Because being able to quote your metrics, whether it's how frequently your team turns over code in response to customer feedback, or how much you know about your unit economics, metrics are the thing that translate easily between an entrepreneur and investor to know whether this company has been de-risked for the next stage of money. So those are the two things that I see entrepreneurs completely leaving out, right? That prompts another question, which is, what do you need to achieve currently in the current market environment in order to raise institutional money?
as a founder, you mean?
Yeah, as a founder.
I mean, traction is always really helpful.
What does that mean, right? We say traction, we kind of know what it means, but
Well, whatever your metric is it user growth? Is it engagement of the user? Is it building traction in new market? So there's various metrics. I mean, there's probably 4 or 5. The obvious ones, ARR, right? MRR. So that helps a lot, right?
you just made a point. Is revenue mission critical?
So
Again, I think times are changing, and I think top line is becoming important. It's always been important for us. I mean, there was and I think there's kind of a renaissance of the top line, I would call it. So yeah, I think it's important.
I mean, we sort of break it down quite a bit, and because we do so much pre-seed, and so we get to really see it, the journey across. I mean, essentially, sort of seed, Series A are bleeding into each other, and then there's seed, and there's seed plus, and then Series A. So basically, for what we see, and I think particularly kind of fintech, is 1.5, 2 million seed to like a 5 million, 10 million, even a 10 million seed, but say 5 million seed, that's a pretty big range, right? And so we see that all as labeled seed Series A. And I think according to according to that product market fit and traction, you'll fall into that as one of those ranges, or one of the ends of those ranges on what you can raise at seed. And so product market fit for us does involve increasingly is the willingness to pay, and whether you're on the B2B side or again, I think particularly in fintech, there is a willingness to pay. So, you know, what is that on the consumer side as well? I think it's hard to sort of say whether that's, you know, on the B2B side, is it 10 customers, is it 100, is it 1,000? I mean, again, it depends on kind of your ACV, what that sort of number is, but on the consumer side as well is like the, you know, what is going to be the basis of what your future business model is, and as much as therefore you can have traction on that will dictate, are you at the 1 to 2 million seed or are you at the 5 million seed, and how fast that, you know, that growth curve is for you. So that's how we break it down, and we tend to see VCs respond much better to like 6 months of some kind of numbers. So 3 months is too little, anything more and you've potentially taken too long to get to where you're at. So 6 months of you know, some really attractive metrics usually lead to a good fundraising outcome.
I think traction obviously is something which everybody likes, but we like to really understand where traction is coming from, and we have a very product focused view. We try to understand why are your customers buying your product. And it doesn't matter if it's B2C or B2B, it doesn't matter in the end. We like to understand, okay, what is really different and why are they keen on getting your product, working your product. And we don't care too much actually about revenues in the first stage. We want to see how your customers, what are your customers doing with the product. If it's B2C, obviously, we try to understand what are they doing with, how long they are dealing with this product and so on. All these kind of metrics, they matter. Even in a very early stage, even the seed stage, even if you have a bunch of customers only, that doesn't matter. In the B2B, we really would like to understand why are they keen on this product? What is this changing? How does this differentiate to others? And obviously, traction comes thereafter. Then the traction can be built after. And this is what we really focus on. Try to understand how are you different? How good is your product in the end? And from this obviously comes traction. And then the question is, how, because you can obviously initiate traction by spending money. We like to really understand where is this traction coming from? Is it coming from a good product because it's kind of going viral, or recommendations, or people are just needing this and desperately want to buy this? So this is really something where you need to focus on in your pitch and making this clear.
Another comment?
I'm really struggling to find a size-fits-all metric because between, you know, lending businesses, even within the same sector, if you look across Europe, so the fees you can extract from French commercial banking are entirely different from UK commercial banking or SME banking, right? So it's extremely difficult to, you know, put a formula out there. But let's say if your business is growing, you know, 60, 70,000 businesses per month, like one we have in India, you know, you can make a conscious strategic decision to defer monetization, because guess what? End of the year they're gonna have 1 million customers. So, right? But there's other situations where you might make sense to monetize a lot earlier. So very hard to say. But I think that's exactly you know, we have to spend time with the founders to, you know, get down to the detail and kind of agree what the metrics are to focus on, and those are dynamic as you move into fundraising, etc. It's you know, it's an art, I guess. Yeah.
Do you get into conversations with founders you might invest in about what are the right metrics at the right time?
100%.
Like, how do you think about that conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We see this, and there's a tendency in Europe, maybe also specifically in Germany, that many investors ask for this monetization thing, and in the US it's more the trend in terms of, well, show me your metrics, show me the users, how they are dealing with the product, and show me traction more on the user end than rather on traction. But what Stefan mentioned in the Indian case, that matters in many cases more. So this is why it's so different.
Yeah. But it's you're absolutely right. However, if I look at some of the really big rounds in European fintech of the last months, of course, I would argue, and we're not invested in Konto, but I'm sure it has helped tremendously that the monetization is so great as well. Because then obviously the multiples all work towards a really large round at a really high valuation, and I'm a big admirer of what they do. So, but yeah, the tendency in Europe for sure, and in Germany in particular, is to look at monetization sometimes too early. Yeah.
point on kind of discussing metrics or what to measure with founders, that's actually, one of the areas or one of the criteria we use to decide who to invest in and want to get behind is, I think if you can't speak intelligently about what you think you should measure, that's a flag for us. So we're happy to kind of share what we think it should be, but that probably means we're trying to be helpful because we're saying no, and we want to provide some help as to what will help other investors say yes. But yeah, that's definitely kind of a red flag. If you don't know what's important for your business, then you really don't understand your own business. And so that's one of those things that really help us as investors get to know you better and understand how you think.
That's great. What are the other sort of key things you want to, and we talked about metrics, we talked about traction. Tell me about how you think about teams.
Yeah. So
First time founders, who should be on an early stage team when you're trying to raise seed?
So ideally, we really want a complementary team, whether that's 2 people, 4, generally somewhere between 2 and 4. I think increasingly it's very difficult to be a solo founder. 10, 15 years ago, you had kind of more time to build an early team and grow that more slowly than you do today. So we do look for teams, and I think it's particularly 3 things. One is design. So we are, similarly sort of very focused on product and how are you building the product, whether that's for a B2B scenario or a consumer scenario, is the design, kind of the product journey, the user experience. We obsess over that in those early conversations, because again, when you have no product market fit or traction, we really want to know how you envision building what you're going to build. Second is where's your USP after product is around, can you build a thing, right? What's how brilliantly are you thinking about the technology behind? Is there some real sort of ML in there, if that's what you're claiming? And so we dig into that quite a lot, and hope you have some USP there. And then the third is back to the brilliant kind of storytelling and the ability of the person to get that product into the hands of the end customer, end users, influencers, etc. So it's we call them the 3 Ds: design, development, and distribution. But those are the 3 key skill sets. And again, they're 2 people, 4 people, I don't know. But I think over 12 years now, we've become quite good at narrowing down the group of people, that are brilliant and just, above and beyond kind of superb in those 3 areas.
I think it's good to start as a team, as Reshma said. I think we would always like to understand of how you can make an organization of a team, because you start as a team, can be 5, can be 10, whatever. But if you reach 50 and above 50, then you really need to build an organization. And we like to really understand and discuss with you how you will be building this organization and how you can introduce more division of labor and all these kind of things, control span, all these things which matter to build an organization. Because if you're growing fast, it will happen every month basically. You change something here and need to adapt, because then you're growing from 50 to 100 to 200 to 500, and that matters a lot for the organization. And we like to understand whether you have the right people on board in the founder team at the beginning, or what you need to add basically to be able to basically have the right organization for the upcoming growth.
Yeah, I would subscribe to everything that was said. So for us, there's a generic founder kind of skill, that matters a lot. And I think people like us, after a few minutes, can very quickly say, okay, is this an exceptional founder or not? And I'm talking about, all the things you've heard about being resilient, being able to, survive in a dark spot that can go for a long, long time, when fundraising doesn't work out, when the product doesn't work out, etc. So, there's a few generic skills that I think we have a very good feeling about whether the person or the team has it. But then we're pure fintech founders. I have my own separate fintech fund. So we really invest into 10 to 15 business models, actually. So we're trying to make our lives really simple, because you can really research those. And so we're very thesis driven, and so for certain verticals we feel that are underpenetrated and there's a big opportunity. There's maybe a profit pool that is to be had. I just throw out, for instance, commercial insurance as one example. I saw Rob is here somewhere, so he's made a great investment in that space. That it makes our lives easier, and then of course you have to, as a founder and a founding team, have a really strong thesis in that vertical, and so the discussion becomes also on top of the generic skills, because do you understand that vertical? Do you have the right solution to disrupt this vertical, etc., etc. So I would say those two things.
Yeah. So I mean, just on founders or team again, we look a lot at something called founder market fit, because there is no product market fit when we look at things. And my partner just again wrote a great blog post about that yesterday, breaking that down across how we look at it across 3 areas. The one other thing I'll say around teams and founders is, I mean, our biggest misses are exceptional founders. So Deliveroo and Will, he is an exceptional founder. I saw sort of Shipamax, I think announced their round. They were really great founders, and you remember these founders, 3-4 years down the road, after you sort of said no, and you're kind of like, yeah, I knew it. Tessian, it was actually Czech recipient when we met them, and you're like, yeah, I knew they were brilliant. And so I mean, I think we more and more take those bets now is when we see those exceptional people where we're like, we're not sure if the market's big enough, but because markets change and they grow from what you thought. Actually, when we first met Nick and Vlad at Revolut, and probably Rob will remember this too, kind of, in our office, they played at the pitch, they played a video of them talking. And you're like, what is that? you're here. And
I remember that video.
And yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they were pitching a credit card for backpackers. And you're like, what? And, what is that market? And so, and I remember them going to Balderton. And it was like, don't take this pitch. And they did. And you still back them, right? But you're kind of like, okay, they are exceptional. And there's sort of something crazy over there, right?
Hang on a second. We've only got about 2.5 minutes left. Questions? We can keep going, but questions? Okay. So, what's the dumbest thing a founder can say to you? What will turn you off immediately? Think back to all the pitches that you've had.
Just so many.
I'm not really answering your question. I'm just saying the worst thing a founder can do with me is try to pitch me at a conference like this on the hallway. Yeah. Whatever they say, yeah. It's kind of.
What's the right way to pitch you?
Well, I think one thing is really pushing you, setting you under time pressure. In terms of really going after your money, saying, well, you need to decide within the next 2 weeks or something like this. Not that we are slow, we can be fast, but we like to build a relationship, because in the end, we're entering into a relationship which lasts 5-10 years. In many cases, even the good cases, even longer, so 10 years probably. And we want to have fun, We don't want to. So, and the way to test is the way only to basically start to establish a relationship, and that doesn't work or doesn't go well in a week or two. So.
Okay.
That's why we like to be pushed into decision making. We can be fast, but we don't like to be.
Asking for a minimum valuation in the first conversation.
Yeah, that is. Even some of our founders are like, what are you doing? But, yeah.
My favorite is, we have no competition.
Yeah,
Right? We get that plenty. Yeah, plenty. What's the one thing that you remember, like your best, and thank you, Reshma, for the story with Revolut guys, right? Because it's stuck in your mind. What do you remember from talking to founders that stuck in your minds? Like, what's a good way to capture your imagination?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we have the same story with Valentin and Max from N26, which basically started with the Teens and Parents app. And actually, I loved it. I have 4 children. I really loved that app. But, they pivoted into what they do now. And of course, Christian kind of, understood that and was the first one to invest at that pivot. But, I think, or like Julian Teike, like an exceptional founder of WeFox. I mean, you have to have this unbelievable conviction from day one. He basically has nothing, and he has a very clear view and vision of what he's going to build over the next 5 years, and that is a huge vision. And so you're like on the seed.
So it's a
You
vision.
listen to that guy, and you're like, okay, either he is a genius or he is nuts, right? And so we have those situations,
Okay.
and I can't blame any VC to come to the conclusion he's probably nuts, and I pass on it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a few have done that and are really regretting it now.
Okay.
I have a good.
I'm afraid we have to
I have
stop.
one good thought on that.
One good thought.
It's
Go
just
ahead.
really good, so I want to talk.
And you can have a tweet too if you want.
I think we're really blown away by founders who have a deep understanding of habits, just human habits and kind of societal habits, and really they have solutions around solving for things we as individuals haven't sort of even thought of, right? And so we love founders like that. We're blown away, and when we have 45-minute meetings, within 15 minutes, we say, great, we're in. Let's talk about your next journey, and let's talk about what the next year is gonna look like. And I think out of the 100 founders I meet every day or so, it's like 2, I think 1 maybe that has that kind of deep understanding of people, and blows me away.
Okay, so we have to stop. Last question. Are you around to have a conversation about this as opposed to being pitched to? Of course, yeah. Okay, the rest of the show. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.